iOS 26.2 is an update that brings some much-needed refinement to the system. With this update, iOS 26 now feels ready to be adopted by the masses, and my guess is that this is the update Apple will start pushing on everybody still on iOS 18. In addition to hundreds of bug fixes, there are over 20 great new changes. Here's the complete list. A great new feature is that you can now add an alarm to a reminder if you have a bad habit of ignoring your notifications and badges. If you already have a reminder set with a time and date, you can also mark it as urgent to add an alarm when it goes off. It'll ring your phone even if you have a focus mode enabled. The Podcasts app has a few new features on iOS 26.2. For one, it'll automatically generate chapters if an episode doesn't have its own already. This only works on public podcast episodes, not private or members-only shows. In my testing with Dear Hank and John, a podcast that typically has an intro, 5 to 6 listener questions, and a closing segment, it incorrectly grouped a few of the middle segments together, but I can still see this being useful if it lets you skip a section you're not interested in. You'll see pop-ups whenever another podcast is mentioned right from the Now Playing screen. You can tap it to see details about that show, and when you go back to the episode description, you'll see a full list of all the shows mentioned in that episode. You'll also see timed links to other content, like Apple News, Apple Music, Apple TV, and more. This is kind of like chapter links, a feature supported in the MP3 format and other podcast apps like Overcast, except it only works when the link in question is to Apple's own content. Apple changed how the sleep score is graded on the Apple Watch and in the Health app. The feature launched in watchOS 26 and gives you a score out of 100 based on your sleep, calculated from your bedtime, sleep duration, and interruptions throughout the night. The threshold for each grade was raised a little higher than before. Some users thought it was a little optimistic. The excellent category was also renamed to Very High to match the other scores. A few changes come to Liquid Glass, Apple's new user interface style that's all over iOS 26. To start, context menus have a new animation that's more fluid, flashy, and glassy than before. It's more similar to the original concept that was shown off at WWDC earlier in June. Now when you tap on a menu, it shoots out and grows into a big bubble and morphs into a rectangular shape that the menu items appear inside. When you dismiss the menu, the same animation plays in reverse. You can now adjust the transparency of the clock on the lock screen. While you're editing your lock screen, you tap on the clock, and if you have it set to the glass style, you can now change it from a little more opaque to completely transparent. To set it back to its default, you just tap on solid and then tap on glass again. The transparency slider is available no matter which lock screen style you have set or which clock font you have set. The Measure app now has liquid glass on its Level tool. The bubbles are now liquid glass bubbles floating over a grid. You can see how they interact and flow into each other, as well as how the light chromatically refracts and bends the light beneath it. Now let's move on to some of the changes found in Apple's apps. Apple Music now keeps song lyrics downloaded to your phone, so you can toggle them on instantly. This will be useful if you want to have the words while you're jamming out, even in an underground subway, or while driving in the car through an area with no service. Passwords has a new setting where you can see the list of all the websites you've prevented from saving a password. If you've ever been offered to save a password and you accidentally hit Never for this website, now you can make sure your password will be saved the next time. Go to Settings, Apps, Passwords, and tap Show Excluded Websites, where you can remove them from the list. Freeform, the collaborative infinite whiteboarding app, now supports adding tables to a board. Apple News on iOS 26.2 has some improved navigation. There's now quick links at the top to access its puzzles, politics, business, sports, and food sections. There's also a separate following tab, separated from the search tab. You can now turn off pinned messages in CarPlay. The CarPlay Messages app added support for pinned conversations in iOS 26, but it received some criticism. The layout isn't the same as it is on the iPhone, which breaks muscle memory, and the unread badges aren't in the same spot on your pinned conversations as they are in the conversations below, making it hard to see what's new. When you go into settings and turn off pinned messages, CarPlay will show your messages in a simple, most recent list. Apple Games has 3 new enhancements. You can now sort the games in your library by size, title, or how recently you've played them. Support for navigating the user interface with a controller has improved, and your scores and challenge progress now update in real time as you play a game. And now, some of the changes across the system. On an iPad, you can drag an app directly into split view or slide over. Apple continues to merge the old method of split-screen multitasking with its new freeform multi-windowing mode. Just like before, you can drag an app icon out of the dock or spotlight. When you let go, it'll automatically fill that half of the screen, like in split view. And you can drag another app icon on top of it to replace it. When you drag an app icon to the edge of the screen, it'll make a floating slide-over window. You can now airdrop with strangers using a temporary code. This will be a convenient way to exchange videos, pictures, and files with people outside your contacts. Generating a code lets you airdrop with somebody for up to 30 days, which is much longer than the current 10-minute limit. You can manage this in Settings, General, Airdrop, by tapping Manage Known AirDrop Contacts. However, how you create a code isn't yet known at the time of making this video. Enhanced Safety Alerts are a new type of emergency notification enabled by default. There are Earthquake Alerts and Imminent Threat Alerts, whatever those may be. You can now make the screen light up in addition to, or instead of, the LED camera flash on the back. Find this setting in Settings, Accessibility, Audio and Visual, Flash for Alerts. With Flash for Alerts enabled, you can have it set to LED flash, screen, or both. In Japan, iOS 26.2 supports replacing Siri with a third-party voice assistant. Holding the side button will allow other apps, like Google's Gemini, Amazon Alexa, ChatGPT's voice mode, or more, to be activated instead, according to the user's preference. Now, this is a new feature that third-party apps still have to adopt, so they might not be available on day one. Also, users will be able to install alternative app marketplaces, like Alt Store or the Epic Games Store, just like in the European Union. Last and least, users in the European Union can now use live translation if they have AirPods Pro 2, Pro 3, or AirPods 4 with active noise cancellation. The feature lets you get a live translation as you're talking to somebody in a foreign language. And those are all of the features in iOS 26.2. If you're fresh updating from iOS 18, be sure to watch my recap videos on everything new in iOS 26.0 and 26.1. I'm Griffin Jones with Cult of Mac.